Bro, like, listen, Art, I don't like Stanley. I think the only person I have been was Stanley.
And Nate, Stanley doesn't state the obvious, like what the up. He spews talking points. Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
The nature of American culture, it's a white people problem. Okay? I literally said they need to understand
You gotta let these people bother you like that. If they want to beef with you, it's called Stanley versus the world.
And just assume their character by stereotype?
I think people do that every day.
Okay, I didn't ask you.
What do I think is okay?
I was supposed to be here early. They gave me another assignment. They didn't pick me up to go to the assignment. I followed their instructions and waited at the hotel. I would love to be here when I can be more fully in depth on this subject, because there's a whole lot of illusions about Africa's relationship with other people in the world. There's a whole lot of illusion about our relationship to the religions in the world. And these belief systems that had its origin in Africa, all of them, and there is no exception, turned on African people. I said there is no exception. And there's one thing you have to get through your mind and keep it. Nothing that ever came from the European mind was meant to do anything but facilitate European domination of the world. And I said there's no exception. Everything that was brought into this continent, everything, every idea, every so-called religion was meant to dominate and to control. The Arabs had no illusions about it. The Europeans had no illusions about it. You were the ones with the illusions. And yet every element that went into the making of every major religion in the world started in Africa. Why is it that you are so naive? You let people redress something that you invented, sell it back to you, and enslave you through it. I'm saying that all organized peasant religions are male chauvinist murder cults. And I say there is no exception. Well, I wanted to be here early. I wanted to deal with our relationship with the people of the world and the fact that we created peaceful nations that had no word for jail because no one had ever gone to one. No word for old people's home because no one ever threw away grandma and grandpa. No word for orphanages. We did all of this, and over half of human civilization was over before we knew that a European was in the world. Before he wore a shoe or lived in a house that had a window. Now, Africa has always and still is the prize for the whole world. We as a people have always been the world's richest people, culturally rich, mineral rich. We have always been the prize because we have always had and still have something that other people won't, think they can't do without, and don't care to pay for. Because we have always been the prize, we have been under siege for over 3,000 years. Nothing that ever brought into Africa from the outside was meant to do the Africans any good. That means all other religions. Islam was the handmaiden of Arab imperialism. Christianity was the handmaiden of European imperialism. The Hebrew faith was the handmaiden of a concept called the chosen people. Now, if God is kind and God is merciful and God has no stepchildren, he won't choose one over the other. And to say he chose some people, you're making him a bigot. And to say that he endorsed enslavement of one people over the other, you're making him an accessory to murder. The Arabs used Islam to rationalize their slavery and their imperialism. The Europeans used Christianity to rationalize their slavery and imperialism. Who are you kidding about friends in the world? Damn it, if you want a friend, look in the mirror. There's 1 billion African people on the face of this earth. Why are you buying third-rate junk from third-rate people thinking you can't make it? Why don't you at least make a safety pin to hold your child's diaper together? Who has programmed your mind into thinking you can't make a car? The first man that made a car that had never seen one previously. The Japanese bought cars, bought locomotives, broke them down and studied them, and had the Japanese technician produce each piece, put it together, and had a much better train than the one they copied from. All knowledge in the world belongs to everybody in the world. Yes. Who has programmed our mind in assuming that we cannot run a nation and run it well? The main thing imperialism did, slavery and imperialism, they removed African people from the respectful commentary of history. And they tell them something they are still telling them, and all of the organized religions are guilty of this. I favor none of it because Africa didn't need any of it. I'm saying that African belief systems, properly understood, is 10 times better than Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And better for the African. So you might have some romance with one of these religions. I have no romance with any of them. I have a romance with reality and truth. And the chips can fall where they may after I tell it. As for friends, you have had no friends. When they discovered you, they began to prey on you. Now let's look at our relationship with Western Asia, mistakenly called the Middle East. For 3,000 years, our greatest enemies came from Western Asia.
Interesting point.
They were trying to avenge the fact that they were once African colonies. You read a book called When Egypt Ruled the East, and you get some of the basic information on this. Now, the first visitors to Africa came in the 1700s BC. These were the people who would later be called Hebrews. Now, black people are ticklish on this because black people think that everything in the Bible is true. I question the intelligence of anyone who thinks everything in the Bible is true or supposed to be true. It's allegory, stories told to illustrate a point at a time when there were very few people reading books. And most of what went into the making of the Bible was copied from Egyptian texts. Now, if you want to get so dewy-eyed over the Bible, which is a carbon copy of a carbon copy, why don't you go back and read the original Egyptian text? Then you see where all these stories started from. You see where the story of the Exodus started from. Now, you get so dewy-eyed, you actually think there was an Exodus. These people walked into Africa. Why couldn't they walk out? Why did they have to go by sea? Why did they see at the park? If you read Egyptian literature, you will discover that the whole story of somebody parting the sea started with about 3,000 years before the Hebrew entrance. I should not use the word Hebrew entrance, before the entrance from Western Asia. Now let's get one thing straight, because black people are confused about all religions. Now, I'm not against any religion. I'm a very spiritual human being. I just don't need a preacher to preach no 10 Commandments to me when he's a backslider going with some other man's wife. I'm intelligent enough to pick from the 10th commandment, not commandments anyway, but the omissions of purity at the great school at Luxor, the great African training school. All right, now, let's get into this Western Asia. I'm saying that the people who came from Western Asia escaping famine did not have any Hebrew faith when they came into Africa. And there's no record of a Hebrew faith before there. Why is it that when they left Africa in the so-called Exodus, they had all three? African culture, an African religion, and an African language. Now look at the origin of so-called people you now refer to as Jews. And you're mistaken using that reference because the word Jew is of European origin. And the people in Europe who call themselves by their name
Well, boy, that ended quickly. Don't know quite what that is. Well, that's the end of the video. Welcome to the pop-up show, folks. It is Stanley versus the world. It is the after party. I got thrown off a panel, and sometimes that'll happen. I argue differently. I don't like 10-minute rants about mangled historical arguments, and so it goes. Sometimes people don't like the reality that they don't know shit. Honestly. So anyway, this will not be a long show. As a matter of fact, I may wind up going over to T's show once he starts up, because I'm kind of tired. Dealing with people who don't know shit is exhausting. And boy, did I run into a train today. And hopefully everybody tuned in to Savage's show. Savage, you should drop your show link so people, can subscribe. But I don't know. I'm just not. I was not impressed. So here's where I'm going to go with this. What I wanted to point out was that the topic of the show was something about boomers ruined the world for humanity or some bullshit argument like that. Black boomers, ruined it for black kids. It comes off as whiny. It comes off as, oh shit, I want to blame my failings on my daddy or my daddy's daddy's daddy. It is not a manly argument, even if it's a feminized argument, if we're actually going to go with the Helen Andrews stuff. So anyway, let's do definitions here. Black boomers, generally defined as African Americans born between 1946 and 1964. By the way, I was born in 65. The boomer mindset, fucking lazy thinking, are a generation that came of age during the civil rights movement and experienced. So I literally had some woman tell me that the boomers had nothing to do with the civil rights movement. It was such an ignorant fucking argument that it was, dude, all I could do was fold my arms and roll my eyes. Or a generation that came of age during the civil rights movement and experienced significant social political change. The change happened during the civil rights movement. We did not have political power before or even during the civil rights movement. There was change, from, let's even just go 1954 to 1964. But I think it actually, there were a lot of civil rights movements that just got, civil rights laws that just got thrown away between 1877 and 1964. But anyway, to my point, boomers basically were intimately involved in the civil rights movement. To say boomers didn't do shit, to say boomers did nothing, dude, the only reason I went up there was because of my friend Savage. The other people up there arguing their bullshit, unresearched, ahistorical points. What you do for friends. So black boomers are often distinguished from their white counterparts by a stronger sense of community, multi-generational family orientation, and a more practical awareness of social inequality due to having lived through legalized segregation and systemic racism. That is a stark difference. You can't go boomer mindset. At least try and sound like you graduated from high school and say a black boomer mindset, because not all boomers are created equal. I tried to hammer that point home, and the recipients of my education were too involved in their daddy beat them too much and was sometimes, just belligerent when they beat. I don't even know. I don't. And there was this insipid woman who kept interrupting and sending Savage money. And then finally, when she got tired of me, well, Savage, I sent you money. Use it. And then I got flushed from the panel. And why would I go back to a hostile panel between Savage and the other two? Because, I'm still kind of fans of them. But, dude, it's gonna be a while before I ever fucking go up on a panel with those two clowns. They literally don't know shit. They want to call their opinions facts in random numbers. They want to call data. Dude, just because you say a number, that doesn't make it proof. They don't understand what proof is. They don't understand how to structure a proper argument. And dude, don't bring me up to a panel if you don't know how to argue a point. I'm not going to show you mercy because you're black. You are just another purveyor of stupidity. Stupidity is one of those rare things that is colorblind. So anyway, this generation, boomers, this generation is also notable for being the first African Americans to legally vote. These are boomers. They fucking literally were the college students in SNCC and other things, but according to these morons, they did nothing. They fucked it all up. Dude, they literally were the bulk of the black people and white people, for that matter, involved in civil rights. Why don't these morons know this? Why can't they do simple math and figure out that people that were born in 1946 were 20 in 1966, and there were many college-aged black kids that were involved in the civil rights movement? But no, they fucked it up. Moronic, ahistorical. There is no excuse for this kind of stupidity. Oh, this is going to be bad. Yes, Savage. How you doing?
Why you say it's going to be bad? It's not going to be bad. I wanted to share something with you so you could have How do I put it in your back chat? A link, because it might be on your side. But if you wanted to play it, I when I put that video I played, it skipped the ones before the boomers, like the silent and shit like that. So
Okay, I don't care about the silent generation. It's
no.
irrelevant to my point.
What you were just talking about what the what do you say, Jim Crow and all that good stuff. I think it's up there. That's why I just shared it with you. I wasn't going to stay long.
Well, I don't need the video. I actually, dude, I'm fairly aware of history.
I'm just saying, it's a video for you to look at. I'm not trying to go against you. I wanted you to watch it. That's all I'm doing.
No, it's not a look. What you don't understand and what your buddies don't understand is, look, you can just pick up. I don't just read one history book about a particular era. You read several, and then you read them. They might disagree. You know, it's called historiography. Books about history, studying the books that talk about history. It's not history. It is historiography. Historians disagree about a lot of even, specific events. All I'm saying is that how can you talk about boomers being shitty and ruining when there were boomers college age in the 60s during the height of the civil rights movement? It makes no sense. These people do not know what they're talking about. I don't know where they get this shit from. John Lewis was a boomer. I think Martin Luther King might have been, he was in his 30s. He might have been silent generation. But when you see the people that were getting sprayed with the hoses, the lunch people that were sitting at the lunch counters, those were boomers. If you were born in 46, you were 20 in 1966, and there were plenty college age kids who were black who were marching. Where do these people, why can't these people do math? But they won't listen to me. They will interrupt me, but don't give me data if you cannot do simple math. And by the way,
yes, sir.
There was something I was gonna say, and now I can't even remember. I'm old, but look, I'm just not gonna agree. I think it's hyperbolic. There are cellulite. We're just not gonna agree. I think he presents a muddle. There's more emotion than data.
Yeah.
And as far as my style of argumentation, I don't know if you've ever heard a Supreme Court session where it can get heated sometimes. Sorry that they can't keep up. Sorry. I don't like it. It's annoying to me when you take 5 minutes to make a dumb point. I get real impatient. If you can't make your point in 1 or 2 minutes, and that's too long. 2 minutes is too long, but dude,
what I do agree with is
I don't care what you do.
What I do,
I do what I do, and I know it's going to sound real boomer like, but dude, if you want to know how to argue points quickly and save time, listen to a Supreme Court session. They don't usually go over 2 hours. They don't have time. Just get to your goddamn point. And the Supreme Court justice might cut you off. Now, generally, the lawyers don't cut off the justices, but the justices do cut off the lawyers. And dude, we don't give a fuck about your feelings. Just get to the goddamn point. It's how I conduct arguments. And if people like Cellulite can't deal with it, then I have no business talking to him. He needs to grow maturity. I do not. When I'm done. No, I'm sorry. On your panel, I guess I have to abide by rules. I don't like bad arguments. I don't like sissies. And you have to know your shit on this panel, and you have to have a spine. And if your feelings get hurt, sure, you can tell me your feelings are hurt, and maybe I'll apologize, or maybe I'll just laugh and just don't care. They are children. MCB and Cellulite and Nightish are children. They don't know how to argue points, and their feelings get hurt if you don't coddle them. And I don't argue like that. So I'm done.
Well, I do agree with you with the long-winded shit. I agree, especially. But if we were in person, I would just with you, interrupted like a motherfucker, like get to the point. But it's also on my panel. It's for the audience as well, and it's also for me to understand that at that point, any other conversation, I really don't mind. It's just for that day and for that structured conversation. That's what I wanted. So, but I do agree with you. I don't like the long way and get to the point. And I think that people should, if you want to interrupt, just make sure you interrupt saying something. And I think that the person that it gets interrupted should actually step back a little bit and listen, see if it should be something to be interrupted with, and then speak. I think y'all should have some type of observation of decorum. But if not, it is what it is. Like, I don't mind arguing. It's just when there's panels like that, I want the conversation to be had. That's why I said now that the debate is
that's
over,
why I didn't come. That's why I didn't come back. I don't, again, you remember how this got set up. Originally, I said no because I honestly am not convinced. Look, I like you as a host. I think you're real personable. I will always come up on your show.
Appreciate it.
But it wasn't an argument I was even interested in. It is muddled. It is literally just the dudes. They don't have, just because you say 55%, motherfucker, that's not data and it's not proof.
Mm-hmm.
These guys don't seem to understand how to actually argue points. And sometimes we don't even agree. Look, I think the best advice I gave Cellulite is stop just saying boomers, say black boomers, because black boomers and white boomers didn't go through the same thing. And the bullshit about they didn't pass down the wealth. Well, God damn it, if you're old, you still need your money for fucking nursing home care. The shit's expensive. Why would you be passing down money when you might still need it? And I know this because my mother died a couple years ago. And this is what my boomer parents did. The only chores we had, as morbid as it may sound, it did not cost us a dime. My father had pre-planned it. Now these are two black parents who grew up in South Georgia during Jim Crow, who were careful and planned and all that stuff. I don't agree with the generation level arguments. My father's a Vietnam vet, and you know what? I wouldn't dare expect him to fund, all this stuff. He might still need the money. I don't even know. My mother developed Alzheimer's 7 years before I even knew about it. So we're like, this was probably 10 or more years. Everything was paid for because my father was responsible enough to plan for it. And he told us face to face, I didn't want y'all to have to worry. I raised you. You have your lives to live. If I can plan for. So that's my boomer experience. I'm sorry if a lot of black people didn't have that experience, I think Cellulite would do himself a bigger favor if he would stop arguing about generational sort of stuff and start arguing class. He would have a way better argument if he wanted to talk class sort of arguments versus generational. He is living in a pop culture. Nobody gives a fuck about the boomers. It's more about class and or race. Generations, you don't, sociologists, boomers, that's kind of like a sociological argument, but outside of Cellulite, and I've heard other people talk about the boomers, but it's a bunch of YNs talking about that shit, and it's really just whining. That's my opinion, but I think a lot of other people would feel the same way. And I mean people who are experts. Okay, Cellulite, he might be smart, but his argument is trash. And he gets pissed off when people just don't coddle him and go, "Oh, you might have a point." It's a trash point that I was there. If it wasn't for you, it would have never happened. I don't do bad arguments. Why debate stupidity? So maybe Savage had a call or something. If he comes back, we'll talk more about the boomer stuff. And by the way, this is Stanley versus the World for those of you that are there. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you're over from Savage's channel, I'm saying things that I couldn't say there because I got cut off too many times. It was a trash argument. The boomer stuff is a trash point. Argumentation over a boom, holding a whole generation of people responsible, dumb. It's just my opinion, though. So anyway, let's find a quick video to watch. And again, I was just frustrated over there. And no, I did not want to do it in the first place. So Nightish gets it right. If I'm pouting and rolling my eyes, it's because I think y'all were all stupid. Nightish's argument is stupid. Cellulite's argument is stupid. Mind Chaos Brew's argument is stupid. She doesn't even understand what political power is. She actually thinks that blacks winning the Brown versus Board of Education was political. That means black people had political power. She thinks Adam Clayton Powell, one mostly white looking guy in Congress, having won from Boston. I think he was from Boston, up in that area. She thinks that's political power. All she wants to do, this is like just, I don't even know where to go with that sort of bullshit. So I am disappointed, and I will always be disappointed, when I go up there for dumb arguments. So, be right back. Sorry, folks. And really, I guess, I'm kind of hyped up from from that discussion. I get disappointed I get disappointed at these sorts of arguments, and I'm so just hyped up that I'm not even saying hey to everybody. Slick Rick salute, Richard salute, and uh, we should do better. Now I'm drinking one as we speak, Richard. I'll be okay. Let's see. Savage wants me to watch this. Oh, let's see. Infographics. So this is about every generation explained in 10 minutes. Why do we need to? Okay. And I'm sorry, Richard and Slick and Savage. I actually am just kind of keyed up. It's why I don't like doing debates, because I'm thinking about all the shit I could have said better. It's kind of like why I don't like doing any sort of stuff like this. What? You're working in the eighth? An eighth of a day from home? Hanging out with your buddies. Are you going fishing? Richard? My son actually went fishing today for a couple hours. I guess he just wanted to get out of the house. He didn't catch anything though. He and his grandpa, my father-in-law, actually caught a couple bass. Was it the day before or the day after Thanksgiving? I think it was the day after. So, that's the beauty of living in the South. You can catch bass even, around Thanksgiving, going to the gun range. Gotcha. I don't think we need to, I don't care about generations. It's interesting. I do think that generations do have some common characteristics, but you don't. Well, number one, I'm not a sociologist by nature. I would have never thought to major in sociology. So I may have some weaknesses, but I do know that black boomers are not white boomers. And I talked about Bruce's Beach. Some of you have probably heard this before. Dude, those people had their property taken, I think it was in the 20s, and it was just returned like 5 years ago. The family got $20 million. But imagine all those boomers. Imagine what that Manhattan Beach beachfront property, and Manhattan Beach is basically Los Angeles. Imagine what a family could have done. They had like a resort sort of deal. Imagine how much money could have been generated. Kids going to college, kids failing too. That's what happens. But who can tell? There could have been a president coming out of that family if they had the revenue. Generational wealth was literally snatched from them. And today, California paid them 5 years ago, California gave the family $20 million. And then California rents the property from them. So now there's some income for the family. But this is after like fucking 100 years. 100 years of generational wealth just taken via eminent domain. The fuck are these people talking about? Boomers? How many boomers? What wealth was just robbed from the boomer generation in the Bruce family? Oh, just sheer illiteracy. Wow, really? Well, she's doing something then. Don't she's let me know. She needs to let me know how to do that.
The hat. I know the gold.
All right. Well, we're gonna see Jamel Bowie talk about comparing JD Vance to David Duke, and then we may not even go farther than that. Before I do this though, I wanted to make one more point, and this is after I arrived to this point. I didn't need someone to tell me because I know how to do critical thinking. But this talking about baby boomers, this is ARC. This is called ARC Republic. It's a black-oriented magazine that I never heard of. Founded via Google, believe it or not. So y'all should let's see here. I will copy a clean link. I'm going to drop this. If anybody's interested in this sort of thing, subscribe to it. I've got a free subscription now. But talking about baby boomers against everyone. Now, the point I want to make is right here. Bruce Gibney, and let's see here. Bruce Gibney's I think he's a white guy. He looks like a white guy. So here's a white guy talking about the boomer generation and that sort of thing. So Bruce Gibney, a 49-year-old Gen X venture capitalist whose wealth stems from investing early in Facebook and in PayPal. In 2017, he wrote a book called A Generation of Sociopaths: How the Baby Boomers Betrayed America. So Gibney accuses baby boomers of causing slowing economic growth, decelerating innovation, tremendous fiscal imbalances, and other issues. He believes the feud between baby boomers and the youngsters began during the COVID-19 epidemic when the vaccine was first made available to elders. So that's kind of what sparked it. Age-related weak immune systems made them even more at risk for the deadly virus, etc. Now, here's the salient paragraph here. Now, this is a white guy talking about boomers. It says here, at the same time, Gibney's ire against the senior population is not extended to those who are black. He says, I excluded black Americans from a definition of baby boomers, but I got attacked for saying baby boomers should not include blacks of the same age. If you want to make an argument, call them black boomers. Here's a guy who wrote a goddamn book on it, but I get attacked by two people who literally are neophytes to critical thinking, if they're doing it at all. You got fucking published authors saying blacks are the exception. So whatever your argument about your daddy leaving you, leaving your family, don't call them boomers. Figure out another way to call them something. But let me reemphasize, their experiences and expectations were so radically different from those of the white, fairly middle-class boomer majority. Not the same experience. Gibney goes on. He says, and because my argument was in large part about how white boomers gained and then manipulated the levers of power to their benefit, my analysis didn't really apply to black boomers at the national level. And this silly woman wants to talk about blacks at political level. There are published authors who I assume did research who would disagree. Blacks did not have political power. Brown versus Brown versus Board was not a political power play. And I don't know how to educate people who are in their 40s. And it's not my job anyway. It's their problem. Though, of course, then majoritarian boomer policy had plenty of consequences for Black Americans. Yeah, there were consequences. We were affected by it. Our ancestors were affected by it, but we weren't writing the policies. I don't know why people cannot think their way through their stupidity. But then they get mad at me when I point out, gee, you're stupid. So, they're not my family. I don't have to fucking deal with them. So, I've done my duty. I went up on the fucking panel, and that's about all I can do. If you don't want the education, all I can do is lead you to the water, horsey. And if you don't drink, you will just fucking sound thirsty. So here we go. We will watch this video, and unless something convinces me not to, like T starting her stream, and maybe she's already started, but I do want to hear this video, and I love this jacket, by the way.
This video is about the fact that the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, appears for all intents and purposes to be a Klansman. And I don't say that lightly. That isn't just an idle insult to throw out at someone who I admittedly do not like.
This guy's a little pig man. He's a little pig man.
This is a straightforward description of the content of the speech he gave at the Turning Points USA conference yesterday. Before we get to that, though, I first want to talk a little bit about Vance as a political figure. So he makes his...
Oh, by the way, Slick, she's been doing a lot of shorts. You know that shorts in the vertical format attracts a lot of subscribers. YouTube kind of highlights it, but her content tends to be a little bit more pop culture oriented. It's not a model that I even have a talent for. So all I can do is congratulate her and to just remember the small folks like me.
Way onto the stage about 10 years ago on the account of the publication of his book, Hillbilly Elegy, which was later adapted into a not particularly successful film.
You got to take care of business. You got to go to school. You got to get good grades to even have a chance.
Mom was the best in her class. What's the point?
I'm talking about a chance.
The whole thesis of Hillbilly Elegy, if you could call it that, is simply that the people from whence J.D. Vance comes, the working class, lower class, poor of Appalachia, suffer from cultural deficiency that rendered them essentially unable to function in the modern world. And although there are larger forces at work that have harmed them.
Let me make a point about Jamel's point. Now, Richard Hanania goes a different way on this. He literally compares J.D. Vance to Ibrahim Kendi, basically the victim complex. So it's a very different take.
It's primarily a cultural problem, pathology. And the story of the book is a story of Vance escaping this pathology into the world of the elites. After Trump won in 2016, this book emerged as kind of an explanation of the Trump voter. Of course, the typical Trump voter is not actually a poor person in Appalachia. The typical Trump voter is a solidly middle-class person in one of the suburbs of a purple state or a red state or whatever, but that's a separate point. Hillbilly Elegy was presented as this explanation for Trump, and Vance as the kind of spokesperson for these people who can speak the language of elites. And at the time, he was a critic of Trump. He was a major critic of Trump.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
Definitely, there is definitely an element of Donald Trump support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia. I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that I'm going to vote for. I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
Friends even said that Vance called Trump Hitler. I mean, that's not a light thing to throw at someone, right? He said Trump might be America's Hitler. And so that's Vance in 2016. 2017 to an extent. But then as it becomes clear that Trump is the Republican Party, as it becomes clear that the only pathway into Republican politics is through Trump, Vance makes an about face. He changes gears. He goes from being Trump critic to something close to MAGA's strongest soldier. We first saw this new Vance in the Ohio Senate race in 2022. You see this now as he rode that positioning all the way to the vice presidential nomination in 2024 and now to the vice presidency of the United States. Now, part of Vance's political transformation is also an ideological transformation. He is not simply a conservative. He's one of these national conservatives, a part of the populist right. And kind of at the foundation of Vance's particular iteration of this is a, for lack of a better term, blood and soil vision of American citizenship and American identity. He has been quite clear about this. He outlined a version of this in the speech accepting the Republican nomination for vice president last year.
Now, in that cemetery, there are people who were born around the time of the Civil War. And if, as I hope, my wife and I are eventually laid to rest there, and our kids follow us, there will be 7 generations just in that small mountain cemetery plot in eastern Kentucky. 7 generations of people who have fought for this country, who have built this country, who have made things in this country, and who would fight and die to protect this country if they were asked to. Now, that's not just an idea, my friends. That's not just a set of principles, even though the ideas and the principles are great. That is a homeland. That is our homeland.
And as recently as this summer, he articulated this vision.
If you think about it, identifying America just with agreeing with the principles, let's say, of the Declaration of Independence, that's a definition that is way over-inclusive and under-inclusive at the same time. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, it would include hundreds of millions, maybe billions of foreign citizens who agree with the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Must we admit all of them tomorrow? If you follow that logic of America as a purely creedal nation, America purely as an idea, that is where it would lead you.
In this vision, the United States is not what you would call a creedal nation, a nation where it doesn't really matter where you come from or your particular origins in the country itself. What matters is your commitment to the ideals of the Declaration of the Constitution and of American democracy. This is the vision of the United States that Abraham Lincoln championed in the Gettysburg Address. It is the vision of the United States that inspired the Civil Rights Movement. It's the vision of the United States that was the ideological backbone of our crusade against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan during the Second World War.
They know that victory for us means victory for freedom. They know that victory for us means victory for the institution of democracy, the ideal of the family, the simple principles of common decency and humanity.
And one does not have to ignore the many, many flaws and problems and challenges that the United States has, nor does one have to ignore its often disreputable conduct on the world stage to acknowledge that this vision of the creedal America is exceptionally powerful. And is arguably the only way a country that has always been diverse and pluralistic and quite fractious could ever unify as a singular nation. But Vance rejects this.
Fractious?
Vance's view is that the
Is that a
degree of your
word?
Americanness is entirely tied to your heritage in this country. And although this is ostensibly a non-racial thing, for example, your humble neighborhood New York Times columnist has a family history that stretches well back into the 19th century on account of the fact that I'm a descendant of enslaved people. It's quite clear that for Vance, and that for other people who share this notion of a heritage Americanness, that it's not actually racially inclusive, but quite exclusive. It's a kind of another way of tying American identity and American citizenship to whiteness, and not even the kind of narrow whiteness that you might have seen among early 20th century eugenicists and nativists, who were also kind of obsessed with this, who insisted that the United States was a Nordic country and only those of German and English origins could really count as true Americans. That at least is somewhat coherent. No, this vision is actually kind of inclusive of Europe as a civilization. And there's a lot to say about this notion of European civilization as a coherent thing. And I'll do a video at another point about why I think the United States is actually not a part of European civilization in that way.
What's up, Dave?
Americans in the 18th
Your mother, Stanley. What the fuck was that?
You mean what? You mean Savage's show?
Yeah, you know. I'm on your,
you know,
I'm on your
originally
side as far as that's concerned. Like,
Well, let me tell you the origin story of it. Originally, Cellulite and I thought, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to remember who was here and who wasn't, but you know, I was up on Savage's panel because I like Savage. He's a good guy. So anyway, we're up there in a Cellulite, and this was like 2 a.m. Eastern time. So, you know, I woke up around 1 or 2 because I'd gone to sleep early, and I saw he was on, and I started listening, and I'm like, "What the fuck are these people
you're
talking-"
Eastern time, right? You're Eastern time, right?
Yeah, you're Central, right?
No, I'm Eastern.
Are you? I didn't realize that it went all the way over to Ohio.
Yeah, I think right at the border of Ohio and whatever the fuck. I can't even think, man. I'm drunk. I'm too drunk to think about it.
Ohio and out there.
Yeah, the next state over is a different time zone, I believe.
No, I know. I know what you mean. But I, you know, the topic, and actually the reason I went up there, the topic was about boomers. You know, black boomers. They just fucking ruined the black community. They didn't take advantage of, you know, the civil rights is a fail and all this stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is this moron talking about? He's absolutely wrong about just about everything. And what it is it's a hood mentality.
Yes.
And I am not, but hold on one sec, because look, there is nothing wrong with the hood, but
no, there is. You have to make a distinction, because if you don't make that distinction, then the bullshit that comes with it just rides over everything you believe or everything you saw.
Well, I was about to say, I was going to say it a different way. You can't look at the world. Once you leave the hood, you can't look at the world through the hood. We know it's fucked up. The data points to it being fucked up. Everything from, you know, the wealth gap, the wage gap, the crime. We know it's not okay. Now, there's a whole nother argument about why it's not okay. But all I'm saying for the purposes of this discussion is, dude, once you leave there, stop looking back and stop measuring everyone through that lens. Dude, daddy's leaving home. He's talking about, see, and let me just point out one inconsistency with Cellulite. He wants to talk about, you know, single mother homes and daddies abandoning families, but then he wants to talk about, well, black men are more involved with their kids even after they're divorced or, whatever. The dude, and then they get mad when I say your argument is muddled. It's not worth me even responding to. Oh, that pissed them the fuck off.
This is how
And
I
the
see
other
it.
problem,
Anybody using that argument that single fathers are more involved or fathers are more involved with their kids, they got that from some type of study, and it doesn't really pan out.
what's his name? Medium Man actually highlighted that on the show, and I
How do
think
you
that
even measure that? How do you measure
okay,
that?
I'm not a statistician, neither am I a sociologist, but from my personal experience, I'll buy that argument because I've seen it, and then there's data, kind of correlating. But for the purposes of my point, these people do not know what the fuck they're talking about. And I'm sorry, but he keeps calling me a boomer, and then when he can't say, when I go, well, I was born in 65, not 64. Well, you right on the cusp. You have a boomer mentality. But let me tell you the biggest problem I have with Cellulite. His wife, who's fairly famous, Mind Chaos Brew, Raw G. Look, what the fuck? Why is your wife up there? Why are y'all doing a 2-on-1? Why do you need your wife to fight for you? Okay, motherfuckers who want to talk about manliness and masculinity, it's totally embarrassing if you buy that argument. And I don't. I don't care that she's up there. What I do care is that, that hood chick bullshit where you just fucking want to gum pop, dude. That's why. And then look, I just have a lot of grievances and, the adrenaline's flowing from, and I probably need a longer, time to kind of go back and reflect on it. But you should never have your wife on a panel if you're fucking in some sort of debate type situation. And then this is what really pissed me off. Once I kept telling them your interpretation of data is bullshit, you don't know what data is. Dude, the only reason I was there is because I originally said, nope, it's not even an argument that interests me. It's such a shitty argument. And then I was guilted into it.
Hold on. Wait right there. That right there, that what you just framed is black. It's like,
so?
No, that is the black.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with being
this
black.
is why I sidestep it, because if your wife, because you're married to a woman, a black female, of course, is there, you have to sidestep that shit. You just do. If you're talking to that man,
I'm not going to sidestep it. I'm going to take them both on.
Okay, you chose that route.
Every
That's not the
goddamn
route
dude.
that I
Well,
would
let me. I don't know. Were you there for a large part of time? Because
no,
the
the end
start
when it really went to shit.
okay,
I was
well,
there
you
for
missed
the
the beginning. Then let me frame it. Let me tell you about the beginning. It was just me, Cellulite, and Savage. And because I wasn't giving long ass answers, it's a trash argument. I gave it as little time as I could. And then it was opened up for people to come up and all that stuff. First person up there was his wife, and I encountered her on his show because he was talking shit about me. And I got wind of it. So I go up there to do, you and me talk. And she's not even on the panel. She's like, he's got it on speakerphone or on the computer so she can hear. So I'm having to deal with two of them. One is a gum popper and he's the cuck.
Right.
That's really my impression. And then,
That I
but
frame
let
right
me
there.
let
If
me
you stop
let,
right there, if you stop right there, that's what I frame as black.
okay, I'm
That
not
that
doing
that right there is
That's
black. I
your
know.
opinion.
No, but that's if you cut it off right there, I frame that as black. Okay, beyond
I've
that,
never run into that with a married couple before on
well,
YouTube. At
they're
least.
not really married. I think that what
I
they're
thought
doing.
he keeps calling her his wife.
No, they're married. Maybe we don't know that. It's unconfirmed
I
as far
don't
as I'm
care.
concerned.
If he
But
says
I
she's his
think that
wife, then yeah, I don't care enough to contradict. But let me tell you this though.
it's a
Now
flagship.
she
It's a flagship up front. It's a front for like
well,
something
that's
that
fine.
what people
But let
should
me
frame it
tell you
as.
why
But
I
that's
did it.
bullshit.
I did it because look, originally I said no, and Savage is trying to, rebuild the channel and all that stuff. And this is the sort of stuff that will get him cash apps.
I
So
wanted to send him
I,
$5.
I said no. And you know what? I would have done it, except Cellulitis. Well, Stanley, you have to get on camera. The motherfucker, the YN is setting stipulations like if it's gonna happen, Stanley has to get on camera. And when I heard that, I'm like, fuck no. That YN is not setting stipulations for me. Why would I do that? So, as it goes on and, then we encounter each other on Nightish's channel. It was the shit show you saw today. It was a bigger shit show yesterday. And I have some problems with Nightish, but I'll deal with him personally. I wound up doing it because it just got, Savage. Sure, I'll help. Getting on camera isn't that big a deal. So at the start of the show, most of the Cash App money came from Mind Chaos Brew, Raw G.
Robbie.
Most of the Cash Apps, which is fine. But then once she gets up there and I just start picking the shit apart, and I did not do a good job. I didn't win, probably didn't win the debate, probably just failed. But it might have been a stalemate because I just know bigger words. But she literally tells Savage, well, Savage, I sent you some money. How about you exercise it now? Now, so I didn't even know it was a bounty show. Maybe I missed something, and I could have. But I get flushed from the channel. And I'm like, well, you know what? I've been up here long enough. I'm not coming back. So I do get like, hey, are you coming back? My answer is, for what? I'm not doing that ghetto shit.
They don't realize that there's no show without both parties. Like one party running away with.
Well, it
an
ended
argument.
shortly after I left. But that's really not, look, I don't give a fuck about the audience. I don't give a fuck. Let me put it to you this way. I didn't simulcast it on my show. I guess I could have.
You should, you should have.
But
you
for
have, because
what?
you did fire. You fired because you fired this up right after that. And I was over there on
No, I
Izzy
was
show
I
talking
was
to the Uncle
frustrated.
Jeff about some dumb shit.
I
like-
was not going back on their show. I can rebut on my show. I don't need to go back there and be abused again. But Savage was graceful enough. He said, hey, you did a good job and all that stuff. And he was up on the panel a few minutes ago. He's a good guy. But I'm sorry.
he is.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. They don't know shit. It is. They say boomers fucked it all up. Boomers were in the thick of the civil rights movement. The silent generation were the Thurgood Marshalls and the Derek Bells, the civil rights lawyers. But in the early to mid 60s, SNCC was all young people. They were all boomers. The fuck? These people can't even do history, nor can they do simple math. How did boomers fuck it up? The black boomers fuck it up when they were the ones at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was college students. It was young kids. It was the church bombing. Those were boomers getting blown up. The little girls, those were boomers. What the fuck are these goddamn morons who are mangling Black history? And then when I try and correct them, I'm the one who is, they literally called me anti-Black black. That could, I don't even know where that shit came from. So,
it's so subjective, Stanley. It's almost like
no, it's not. No, subjectivity has nothing to do with this. The age of the SNCC kids in the mid 60s, they were boomers. That's not subjective.
Why did they have that hang up that like boomers are so bad? I honestly, well, it's not just a black thing. It's, there are books written about it. But the thing is they can't figure out that boomers, in my opinion, and I said this, and let me put it to you this way. Raw G said, hey, blacks can't be boomers. You're anti-black. I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, I'm actually saying blacks can't be, I would call them something else because they didn't have the political power. They didn't have the economic power. And then she attacks me for saying, oh, black people didn't have political power. Fuck no. Not between 1870 and now the time frame that I thought we were talking about is the civil rights movement. But she starts talking about Senator Bruce, who was a senator back during Reconstruction. Well, how can you say black people did? Motherfucker, we weren't talking about Reconstruction. They keep gish galloping and moving goalposts because they don't have a point. They make these arguments on quicksand, and when I won't rescue them from their quicksand, they get pissed off. I will not coddle fucking idiots. I have no reason to. The only idiot that I need deal with is my 19-year-old. And I think my 19-year-old could have done better. He's taking AP history. He might know more than they do. But you got to know when you're arguing emotional versus like factual.
I don't give a fuck how I argue. As long as I win,
not
I will
you.
use
I'm saying
any
like
weapon.
No, let me rephrase that because like the people you're arguing with are.
I'm listening. I'll be right back. I'm listening now.
No, they're arguing emotionally, not factually. If you're basing what you say on facts, then they're arguing with emotions, and that's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they might have an argument. Well, here's what Nighty said. Stanley, you should never come on camera because we can tell from your face that you're being emotional. I'm like, why are you looking at my face so much, motherfucker?
See, that's that fucking you don't get no pussy argument bullshit. That's what a lot of people bank a lot of. That's like
Nightish is getting pussy.
Well, it's like in my heyday, I was the man type shit. It's just dumb as fuck. I hate that because most of this shit is disingenuous. It's like, okay, let's argue with the let's debate on what the topic is, not whether I was a participant or if I was just like I had a different type of go with it. I don't see it the same way most niggas do, man. I just really don't.
Well, all I can say is now I understand you. I don't see it the same way they see it. It's
Right.
like, what the fuck? And you know what? There are certain people who have been to jail. Dude, you weren't getting pussy in jail. What were you getting? See, I could take that sort of argument, and I'm vicious, dude. I will take that. Or I want to hurt your feelings. Once you piss me off or annoy me, I am all ad hominem. I'll throw in a fact. But dude, you weren't getting pussy in jail would be my response.
You know what I think, Stanley? I don't think you figured out what my angle is. I really don't. I don't think you understand what my angle has ever been.
I probably don't.
You can assume that I come from the hip hop generation. I see things from a certain angle, and then you argue against me for that. But it's never been that. Like, I'm completely. I might play it a part. Yes, that's what I approach it as. But like, nah, man, no, none of this shit.
Okay, look, when it comes down to facts, I don't care which generation you're a part of. Enjoy your hip hop. All I care about is that you get the history or the politics or even the sociology right. You can luz you some fucking ditty and still get the history right. I don't care what your musical tastes are.
No, I'm so anti-culture. It's not funny. You just don't know. No, mind you. Okay, I'll never give up what my true position is. But like, I'll drink with you and I'll have a good time. But like, nah, you guys don't understand where I'm coming from.
Okay,
Nah,
well,
nobody.
if you don't tell us, we never will. But let
Yeah,
me
exactly.
I can tell you where I come from. It's not Boulay, but it's not far from Boulay. I wanted to also tell these motherfuckers, dude, as far as I'm concerned, the boomers are okay.
Same here
the
because I
other
was
thing-
raised with a certain amount of respect, and there's some fucking lines in the sand. How do you say it? There are certain things that I will always respect.
Hey, let me say hello to Brian and CK. What's up, y'all? I mean, dude, that you don't see it like the hoi polloi see it. Okay. I simply don't have a problem with how you see it. Just get it right. Get the history right. The stuff that everybody knows about history, we may even interpret it differently, but you know, and by the way, shout out to SKC. That motherfucker sent me a Cash App. I didn't even know he was in the audience. I was like, what the fuck is he doing? And you know what his comment was? You're gonna need some beer after dealing with these dummies.
Oh yeah, when was that sent?
Tonight. I didn't even realize it till I had dropped off I was booted off the panel. I'm like, well, goddamn, SKC, I haven't talked to you.
No, I shared that stream.
Oh,
I shared
did you?
that stream.
Okay.
Yeah. Because,
well, maybe next
SKC
time
has
I'll
a problem
stream
with
it.
the anti boomer argument.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I was too dumb to stream it. So it was nice of SKC to make it at least, you know, somewhat worth my while.
Yeah, it's always cool when he shows up for sure.
I'm surprised he sullied his hands.
They gave me
He
confirmation. on
he
something
doesn't
told me.
usually come down from the
Mount
Valhalla.
Coon. Mount Coon.
Mount Coon. I wouldn't have even gone there. I was gonna do Olympus or Valhalla.
Man, shout out to SKC, man. Really, that's the big brother.
Well, he's still kind of the apex of, we don't agree, but at least I understand. Dude, it was, oh my God, it was muddled. It was like this motherfucker is talking about a sociology that it was just mangled. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's T. You can't hear it. Yeah, T's show is starting up, so I may go over there in a
Hey,
bit.
Mo was over there on Izzy Band's panel. I was talking to
Really?
John Galt earlier.
Were you? Well, I've
Yeah.
seen you on his panel lately.
I had to show up because literally that's the channel that you was on. Like John Galt, I don't have a problem with John Galt.
Ooh.
I don't. I know what you got to say about John Galt. Listen.
Wait, hold it. Am I saying anything about John Galt? I just said, ooh.
No, I can compartmentalize.
Obviously.
I can. I know how to do that. But man, fuck it. Don't mind me, bro. I'm like 3 sheets to the wind.
This point that Brian makes about boomers let all the degradation into society, it's basically bullshit history. Sorry you think that. You might want to read a book or two, Brian. Boomers, black boomers, were a part of the civil rights movement. They were getting beat up and hosed down and bitten by dogs. What the fuck are y'all? Do y'all not understand nuanced arguments? Not all boomers were fucked up. Sorry. What's up, Dave?
Nothing. I think that you do carry
annoys me when people make these broad
you carry the theme. Yeah, it's broad. You carry the theme that the boomers gave, and somebody came up with a grand idea of what the fuck they was doing, but that doesn't mean that all of them were doing that. Each one
Let
is
me
different.
tell you my
There's nuance.
criticism. My one criticism is they don't know when to give up power. Trump, Biden, they don't know when the fuck to give up power. They will die on the throne before they just fucking retire. That's my major criticism, and I don't have many others. I don't think at the generation layer. Boomers, dude, there's so many types of boomers with so many different types of experiences. It is a dumb argument. It's unsupportable. And dude, it's a dumb argument. Again, and I hope I made that clear several times. The only reason I even showed up tonight was out of respect for Savage. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even been there.
Yeah, shout out to Savage, man. He did try to run a tight ship. I do think though, when you're on the road, you do have to conduct yourself a different kind of way.
Nope. Dude, when I say I'm gonna be myself, I will always be myself. If you can't handle myself, I think Raw G did the right thing. She exercised her money to get me off, and no, I wasn't coming back to that fucking gum popping shit.
Hey, I don't have no problem, no issue with how it went.
Someone actually gave me a compliment. Can't remember whether it was Slick Rick. Oh, I haven't talked to Clue in a while. He said, hey, you held your own with 3 fighters.
that right there is an indication to me is like who's winning and who's losing. You got like 6 different people trying to come at you with different ideas. It's like they're tied to the old way of thinking, and you might just introduce a new way of thinking.
But it's not a new way of thinking, motherfucker. I was
For
trained
people
by
who think
Benedictines. It's an old way of thinking. They are the new way of thinking. I'm the old way of thinking. Literally, in
new
my
or old is
sister,
definitely different. Their approach, they don't know
different
how
for
to.
what?
They don't know how to deconstruct the argument.
You're right. That's a new way of weakness. They don't know how to think. And you know, my sister said something rather interesting, and I thought it before, but you know, we had that Benedictine. She was trained. God damn it. Our Lady of Mercy. She was trained by an order of nuns, but we were both in lower school trained by Franciscans. So I was Franciscan and Benedictine. She was Franciscan in Our Lady of something or another, the nuns. I'd have to think of it. Sisters of Mercy. But dude, we had the best Savannah could do with a classical education. And they fucking start drilling being able to think critically from first grade. They don't, and it's not mean, though I've had my hands, tapped with a ruler in elementary school because I was a naughty kid. But dude, you have to think, dude, they fucking teach you how to think from day one. And these YNs in Knightish and Cellulite, they get offended enough to tell me, well, there's boomers, there's, Generation X, and there's YNs. I'm like, YN isn't a generation. That's almost a class argument. And I called Cellulite a YN thinker several times because he is a YN. That motherfucker, you actually think sitting up there and being all strong with your voice and all the hand movements and shit, you think that's data. And I don't. Yeah, I roll my eyes. And let me also tell you this. I put my head back looking at the ceiling. And that, dude, I was fucking with that idiot the whole time. fucking Night is just like, well, you shouldn't come on camera because you're being all emotional. We can see your emotions. Yeah, motherfucker. I intend for you to, when I roll, I know I'm on camera. I think I can eye roll and people know what I'm thinking and I'm not interrupting you, bitch. That's what they don't understand. Dude, I didn't want to be on camera in the first place. I'm never on camera. But if you want me to be on camera, I'm going to make the best use of the camera that I possibly can. And they didn't know. Dude, yeah, I'm on camera. And the reason they wanted me on camera is so they could see my hair. So Nidus is calling me nappy headed and all this shit. And I didn't get to retort, well, motherfucker, you have no hair. Let me lend you some naps. It's just, dude, it's not even kindergarten level. Don't look at American life through the hood lens. We all agree that, there are major problems there. Major problems in the holler too. Don't come and look at American life. If you get out of the holler, don't think everyone's from the holler or understand what goes on in the holler. It's an idiot's premise. What's up, Sin? She got what from a short sin? I think Sisters of Mercy, I think that's an actual Catholic order of nuns. And I honestly can't remember what my sister's school, which order of nuns. I'd have to look it up. But my point is, the type of education, and it wasn't like, like a 1950s Catholic school education, but they did force you to think. Those nuns, those dude, my ninth grade Latin teacher had something called Guppy of the Day, and he would toss you a baseball or something. You're the Guppy of the Day. And when all the other idiots can't fucking answer a question, I expect you to answer the question. So if you were the unlucky Guppy of the Day, you would get your ass roasted. He didn't know it. Do you know it? Dude, it was a random Guppy of the Day sort of thing, but motherfucker, that kind of forces you to study. Do you really want to be a Guppy of the Day and not know the answers? It sounds weird, but I always did my Latin homework. Yeah, I saw that joke, Sin 7, and I did not laugh. So thanks for the effort. So let's finish this up.
See themselves.
And by the way, I am going to go over to T's show if she'll let me up on the panel. I have not eaten dinner, so it's going to be a way late dinner. And then I'm going to bed. I've got 2 new books to read. So, and then I have to cook all day tomorrow. I didn't do a show today, at that 1 to 2 time frame. Not sure I'll do one. If I don't do one tomorrow, which is Wednesday, you probably won't see me till Friday or Saturday. I'm going to cook Christmas dinner and we're going to transport it down to Savannah. And, I'm not doing like get on for an hour. If I'm going to do a stream, it needs to be for a while. Well, good for T. Was it good?
Either, but that's a separate conversation. This is just this notion of heritage is inclusive of much of Europe, which means that because much of Europe doesn't have the kind of long-standing origins in this country as, say, the descendants of African slaves or Native American people, or even people who were part of what was formerly Mexico in Texas and California and New Mexico, the only way you can understand this definition of heritage, this definition of roots, is if it's racial. So that's Vance. That's where Vance stands. But I don't want to get too caught up in Vance's ideological views, because I think the thing to know about him is he'll kind of say essentially anything if it's going to get him to power and authority. See his transition from Trump critic to, again, MAGA's strongest soldier. It's hard to say that he has any principles beyond whatever that will help him climb the ladder of power, whatever will help him get even closer to the pinnacle of American politics, which is the presidency. And it's clear Vance is determined, either because these are the waters in which he swims, or because of a studied calculation or whatever, that the pathway for him to power is through the most gutter demagoguery and bigotry that you can kind of imagine. You saw it last year when he essentially whipped up a blood libel against the Haitian immigrant community of Springfield, Ohio, his constituents, mind you, accusing them of stealing their neighbors' pets and eating them. And then when confronted on this, insisting that it is his right to make up stories to get people's attention to what he sees are real problems. In this case, the existence of an ethnic minority that he doesn't like.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
But it
if
wasn't
I have
just
to
a meme.
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dan.
And it's performance.
Yeah, that was actually that particular clip about making up stories to get attention. That's going to go down in the history books, and it will not be something that he is heroized. The motherfucker said he would basically lie to get his rhetoric into, the national conversation. That's, in my opinion, that is the death of the character argument. Back in the Clinton days, especially I think when he ran in 1994, character was always a thing that a president, had to have. It would always be brought up during presidential campaigns, and that pretty much ended in 2000. But it is the death knell, the nail in the coffin was someone who's supposed to be and is currently vice president saying we'll make up shit. Dude, they have debased. There was always a problem with American, the founding myth and all that stuff because it's patently racist. But now you're gonna lie too? Yeah. We got a future vice president saying that he will do what it takes to win an argument or try to win an argument. History will not be kind to JD Vance, and I don't think he's going to be president, by the way.
The Turning Point conference yesterday is another example of this. At this Turning
What's
Point
up, JB?
conference, he basically
Hey,
went
buddy.
on
How
a
you
hate
doing?
rant. Of course, it wasn't a
Good. Oh, you got a comment on the video, or you just here because you need somewhere to be?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Gotcha. Well, let's get back to the video.
rant.
Right.
It was a studied speech, which makes it even worse. Jokes and asides, but all meant to communicate that there's an in-group and an out-group, and the out-group consists of people who don't look like you. The out-group consists of people, in this speech, I'm not exaggerating, who look like me. Here are some highlights from that speech.
And in the meantime, what are the Democrats offering you in the meantime? I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, they are not sending their best. Omar Fateh was Ilhan Omar's candidate for mayor of Mogadishu. What? I mean, Minneapolis. Little Freudian slip there. And Jasmine Crockett. Oh, Jasmine Crockett. The record speaks for itself. She wants to be a senator, though her street girl persona is about as real as her nails.
Unless you think I'm really exaggerating about the extent to which
What the fuck was that? Is that statesman-like? So
Stanley,
you're
you gotta
up
come
there,
in on that one,
motherfucker. I'm talking. Don't interrupt. So how
just wanna know, man.
presidential- Okay, motherfucker, do not interrupt when I'm talking. Can you wait?
Okay.
So how is it presidential to talk about a woman's nails? How is that masculine? Dude, he is a Helen Andrews masculinity school failure. So what do you have to say, JB?
No, I was asking what you had to say about that, man.
I just did.
That was it.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's restart the video if you don't have comment.
Yeah.
the speech was just an open declaration of white nationalism. This is one of the things he says during it.
In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
I'm sure Vance imagines himself as almost a Reagan-like figure, someone capable of talking to the troglodytes as much as the people in the C-suites. But this kind of language, even Reagan would have shied away from. This kind of language, even George Wallace would have shied away from. George Wallace, not the comedian, but George Wallace, the Alabama politician who sort of pioneered the kind of racial resentment, populist politics that is quite influential in the moment.
We are defending the right of the people of Virginia and of Alabama to decide some questions for themselves.
George Wallace, his heyday was in the 1960s, in the 64, 68, and 72 presidential elections. And he almost threw the election into the House in 68. If you want to read more about Wallace, the best book on him, I think, is The Politics of Rage. George Wallace, The Origins of the New Conservatism and the Transformation of American Politics by Dan T. Carter. This is a wonderful book and will teach you a great deal, not just about Wallace and Nixon, but about American politics in the 60s. So highly recommend this.
A black man holding a book. It's the most hated thing on anti-black TV.
Stanley, what you think about him holding that book, man?
I think it's wonderful.
Oh, okay.
If you want to know more about George Wallace. You can also, if you're not so inclined to read a whole tome, read Dan T. Carter's much slimmer volume From George Wallace to Newt Gingrich, Race in the Conservative Counter-Revolution, 1963 to 1994, another great book. No, Vance is neither Reagan nor Wallace. He's not as politically skilled as men. He's actually kind of off-putting. He has a churlishness, a smugness that comes through in all of his public appearances. If Vance is similar to anyone, it is David Duke, who in the late 80s, early 90s was a literal Klansman trying to make his way into Republican politics, first as a state lawmaker and then in a run for governor.
Quite the
And
comparison.
I'm not exaggerating when I say that Vance sounds almost exactly like Duke.
There's nothing wrong with white people being proud of theirs. I think Jesse Jackson's proud of his people. I want to preserve the heritage of my society. I love the Western Christian civilization that we live in, and I'm concerned about the fact that we seem to be losing some of that heritage.
The only thing that has truly served as an anchor of the United States of America is that we have been, and by the grace of God, we always will be a Christian nation.
But even unlike Duke, Vance is not shying away from the seedy underbelly of his political movement. That's in part because that seedy underbelly, led by people like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, is no longer the underbelly. It's the mainstream of at least the younger part of the Republican Party. And Vance is making a studied calculation that he can ride this energy, this reactionary, bigoted energy that's explicitly opposed to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. It's explicitly opposed to the notion of the United States as an inclusive creedal nation. Vance thinks he can ride the energy to the White House, ride the energy to the presidency, ride the energy to the very top, where then maybe he'll perhaps fill the gaping hole that clearly exists in his soul, the gaping hole that has led him to completely contort his entire self in pursuit of power. Maybe he can accomplish that. Maybe I'm just being naive or too optimistic, but I think someone that viscerally unpleasant isn't going to get just as far as he hopes to, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You know, if you're vile, you better be like Trump. But there's something that he said. Let me make sure I heard this right.
Fill the gaping hole that
Okay,
exists in his soul.
I'm sorry,
The
what?
gaping-
I said I'll
You're
be right back,
whispering?
okay?
Why are you whispering?
I don't know, man. I'm nervous, man.
Go over to T's show. I'm not going to be up that. I might be on what, 15 to 20 minutes longer. So, you know,
So
if
we
you're
gonna
back in
talk
5
over
minutes,
there?
I'll be here. If you're back after 20 minutes, I'll probably be over at T's, probably in the
Okay.
chat.
I'll see you over there, buddy.
Take it easy.
Kudos.
Thanks. So let me make sure I heard this right, because I have a video that will respond to this.
hole that has led him to completely contort his entire self in pursuit of power. Maybe he can accomplish that. Maybe I'm just being Fuentes and Candace Owens is no longer the underbelly. It's the mainstream of at least the younger part of the Republican Party. And Vance is making a studied calculation that he can ride this energy, this reactionary, bigoted energy that's explicitly opposed to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. It's explicit.
Okay, he's absolutely wrong there. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, it says equal, but it didn't mean equal. This is where I'm going to depart. Jamel Bowie's wrong about that, and it's an interpretational sort of deal. I think Jamel Bowie is actually like a liberal, like in the classic sense. But there's a distinction that a historian, I can't remember whether I've had a few beers. I can't remember whether he's my favorite male historian or second. He's my second favorite. Gerald Horne is my first favorite historian. But there's a term that Tad Sturmer uses, liberal nationalist. I think that's the term he uses. And he defined it today. I never even thought of it that way. This is why you should listen to historians and a bunch of different people. But no, the Declaration of Independence never even considered black people when they said equal in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. It wasn't about black people. Black people weren't even there to have a say. Let's see. I listened to it this morning. Let me see. Can I find it? I listened to too many YouTube videos. There it is. So let's listen to it.
And how liberal nationalists are actually helping them, even if they don't know it.
The term is liberal nationalist, and this is almost 13 minutes long. After this, I'm going to fold up the show because I have to go, make dinner. It's just going to be probably an omelet or something. But this is actually fairly important in a kind of a rebuttal of a very specific point that Jamel Bowie makes. And this is called How Liberal Nationalism Helps the Far Right. And I'm sorry, I happen to agree with this point.
Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm a scholar of the American Revolution and public history at the University of Southern Denmark and the author of A Resistance History of the United States. Adam Serwer is one of the smartest writers working today, which makes his new piece in The Atlantic, Conservatives Want the Antebellum Constitution Back, such a perfect object lesson in what I call liberal nationalism. And this is, though, an unconscious sort. It's not that he's wrong about what's happening. He's dead right. The Roberts Court, the Trump regime are dismantling the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. Kavanaugh's common sense about racial profiling is monstrous. Birthright citizenship is under direct assault, all of it. But watch Serwer's framing in this piece. Watch what it protects. Serwer frames this as the right trying to restore the antebellum Constitution, the bad one that existed before the Civil War, before the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments fixed things. He even contrasts it with what Christopher Caldwell called the Constitution of 1788, with all the traditional forms of jurisprudential legitimacy and centuries of American culture behind it. Here's the problem. There is no antebellum Constitution, at least not one separate from the framers' Constitution. The exclusionary republic wasn't a corruption of the founding. It was the founding. The Constitution of 1788 didn't get twisted by later interpreters into something the framers never intended. It worked exactly as they designed it to. Roger Taney was right. And I mean morally right, of course. That's absurd. I mean historically accurate. When Tawney wrote in Dred Scott that Black people were not included and were not intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, he was correctly describing what the framers meant and what they said they meant. That's not a pro-slavery distortion of a racially neutral founding. That is the founding. And you can trace the direct line from Benjamin Franklin's 1751 essay on population, fretting about swarthy Europeans and hoping America would be reserved for the lovely white, kicking Black people out because they would taint the white nation he wanted to build. Thomas Jefferson's notes on the state of Virginia, working out the insane pseudoscientific case for Black inferiority while he enslaved the mother of his children. Tawney's Dred Scott decision, the Corwin Amendment of 1861, the one Congress passed to permanently protect slavery in the Constitution, which Lincoln endorsed. All the same project, all the same vision, all from the world the founders made. Continuity, not change. When Kavanaugh writes that apparent ethnicity can be a relevant factor in determining who gets detained by ICE or anyone, and that this is common sense, he's not betraying the founders' vision. He's articulating it. When J.D. Vance talks about heritage citizens and what whiteness in America means, he's accurately describing the republic the framers created, a nation where citizenship was definitionally for white people, where everyone else was outside and meant to stay there. And none of this is difficult to discover. It's what the founders and framers said at the time, what they deeply believed. Even for those who wanted to end slavery, what did they then want to do? As Washington and Madison put it, get Black people out of the United States. They couldn't exist along with white Americans. And Sowers can't quite say that. He gets tantalizingly close. A lot of liberal nationalists do. That single reference to the Constitution of 1788 in that piece, but he can't follow it to its conclusion. There's something that stops these folks, because that would require admitting that the founders weren't the solution, that they were the problem. And that's the trap of liberal nationalism. I should probably explain what I mean by that, since I keep using the term and it's all over my book. Liberal nationalism is the operating system of the American center left. It's got high priests, Ken Burns and John Meacham and Aaron Sorkin. It's the belief that the founding was basically good, that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are aspirational documents pointing toward equality, and the founders were flawed but heroic figures whose best instincts got betrayed by their own shortcomings and later generations. Slavery was the exception, not the rule. The arc of history bends toward justice. We just have to live up to who we really are. Conservative nationalism shares the veneration, but it drops the aspiration. The founding wasn't a set of promises to be fulfilled. It was an achievement to be defended. A republic of, by, and for a specific we the people. When J.D. Vance talks about heritage citizens, when the Roberts Court guts the Voting Rights Act while invoking equal sovereignty, when Kavanaugh calls racial profiling common sense, that's conservative nationalism working out in the open. They're not embarrassed by the exclusionary founding. They celebrate it. They want it back, and they're doing their best to put it back. Both nationalisms protect the founders and the institutions and culture they created. They just disagree with what the founders meant. Liberal nationalism says the founders meant equality, so we need to live up to their vision. Conservative nationalism says the founders meant a white republic, so we need to return to their vision. But neither side will say the founders were the problem, that the vision itself was rotten, not just the implementation. And this is what makes liberal nationalism so goddamn useful to the right. It sets the boundaries. It says you can argue about what the founders intended, but you can't argue that we should reject what they intended. It makes restoration the only acceptable frame for change, which means the side that's actually correct about the founders' intent has the stronger claim. It's this endless game of ridiculous storytelling. And that side is almost never the liberals. In a very real sense, liberal nationalism is a containment system. It channels resistance energy, misdirects it into appeals to founding mythology. Every movement for change has to pretend it's not really changing anything, just returning to something, just fulfilling the promise or living up to our ideals or making real the words of the Declaration, the battle for the soul of the nation. Remember that one? This is why the civil rights movement as a tactical matter wrapped itself in constitutional language, why marriage equality got argued as an extension of existing rights, why every progressive cause has to genuflect to the founders before asking for anything. Sometimes that works, I guess. Tactically, symbolically, it works. You can get a court that buys into the liberal version of the founding myth, but it comes at a cost. You can never name the actual problem, which means you can never solve it. You can never say, this is what they built and we have to tear it down. You can only say, this is what they built and we have to complete it, which concedes the game before you started playing it. The change can never be lasting. Just look at the Dobbs decision. You can't venerate the founders and their documents while assigning the proper evil to the country they created. You can't protect Jefferson and Madison and Franklin while condemning the exclusionary world they built. The mythology demands that the founding was good and pure, that something went wrong later in the antebellum period, and that the Reconstruction Amendments represent a return to the founders' true vision. But the radical Republicans at the end of the Civil War weren't restoring anything. They were trying to destroy the founders' vision and replace it with something new. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were not a fulfillment of the Constitution. They were a revolution against it. Thaddeus Stevens understood that. Charles Sumner understood that. Frederick Douglass understood that. They weren't naive about what they were up against, that the document itself enshrined exclusion, that the mythology of the founders would be weaponized against them, and that they had seized a narrow window of power and had to use it before it closed. The window did close. The revolution was interrupted. And ever since, the forces of counter-revolution, of counter-resistance, have been working to restore the framers' world, which is exactly what Sir Ward documents so well in the piece. Go read it. The problem is, if you can't name what's being restored, you can't effectively resist it. Here's why this matters practically, not just historiographically. If you think the Constitution got corrupted by later interpreters, then the entire game is about interpretation. Your solution is to restore its true meaning, the founders' meaning. But if the exclusionary vision was the founders' meaning...
Wow. Hey, what's up, North? From John's Plantation. Oh my Lord, you know what? That's got to be a show title. Oh, well, welcome aboard. I've been here for a little bit of time. Good to see you, North. So I just want to make one comment. I subscribe to Dr. Sturmer's, I guess I've joined Dr. Sturmer's YouTube channel. He's a historian. So the only problem I have with what he's saying here is, you know, and I have my personal opinion about what Frederick Douglass, you know, when he framed the Constitution as a freedom document, Frederick Douglass has been cited as proof that, you know, the Constitution actually meant or enabled slavery to die a natural death. Dr. Sturmer doesn't believe that. I don't believe that. Now, I'm not a fucking historian of any sort. Didn't major in it. You know, I've had a few classes, but I've kind of taken it up, you know, the last, 10 years or so. And I'm going to ask Dr. Sturmer to square Douglass's, you know, thinking that, hey, the Constitution is a freedom document. Now, my contention is that Frederick Douglass was basically taking a more or less rhetorical or political position, you know, trying to do something. You know, it was a moral suasion argument, talking about equality and all men created equal. That's a moral suasion argument. Or you know, basically it's a, you know, peer pressure, you know, to bring it more down to, you know, something more understandable, or a guilt trip. Hey, you know, the founders said this, why aren't you living up to it? But I think, again, it was a political position. Frederick Douglass knew what that Constitution was. I'm interested in what Sturmer has to say, because he's basically saying, you know, the Constitution had no intention of Black people even being remotely citizens. I've read Madison's notes. The biggest brouhaha that they had during the Constitutional Convention was how to deal with slavery. That they compromised basically means that, hey, everyone in the end was okay with slavery. It wasn't a freedom document. If you compromise over something, and there are plenty of people, including Jefferson and Madison, who considered, the reason they considered slavery as, hey, we got to maintain it, is because they didn't think if we free the slaves, we're going to have to spend a shitload of money to send them back to Africa, because we don't think black people and white people can live together. And one of the reasons in Jefferson's, if you read, I can't remember whether it was a letter he wrote to somebody or whether it's in Notes on Virginia. I think it was a letter, but he basically says these people were fucking afraid that, hey, if we set these slaves free, they're going to do to us what we did to them. If we free them, we got to figure out how to get them out of here. White people and black people can't live together. And they were so wrong. Black people didn't want to go back then. Lincoln thought the same thing, that black people and white people can't live together, until he met some black people and they're like, well, nope, we're born here. Why should we go? And he had no problem with it. It is so sad that in North, I don't know that you caught the you don't unleash a dog. Not sure what that means. Please feel free to clarify. And I'm not going to be here much longer, but because I did a debate earlier, and the only reason I'm doing this pop-up show is I'm kind of hyped up afterwards. I had a bad experience. It makes me sad when I hear grown people like over 35 or 40 just get shit so wrong, because they're passing this sort of ignorance onto their kids. They're just creating more ignorant kids. But I have an answer to that, but it would be, I'm not Aramiose Frimpong. So let's finish up what Dr. Stormer has to say here.
Restoration doesn't help you much. Restoration is what the right is doing, though. They're the ones reading the framers correctly. They're the ones returning to the source. They know this. The conservative legal movement knows that originalism is a winning frame for them, because it claims the authority of the founding that is legitimized and re-legitimized every time a liberal nationalist talks about how great it was. They know that every appeal to the founders' true intentions strengthens their hand, because the founders' intentions were, in fact, exclusionary. Every time a liberal says, this isn't who we are, a conservative can respond correctly, this is exactly who we were. So what do we actually do? Stop fighting on their terrain. Every argument that starts with the founders intended, it's already lost. You've already conceded the frame. The question isn't what the founders intended. Who cares? The question is what we intend. Now, going forward, for a country that includes everyone the founders purposefully excluded. The radical Republicans didn't ask what Madison would have wanted. They didn't care. They asked what justice required, what democracy needed, and they used the power they'd seized to try to achieve those things. They knew they were in a revolutionary moment, and for God's sake, they acted like it. We recognize that the window the radicals opened, the one that closed on them within a decade, is the same window we need to reopen. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were not a fulfillment of the founding. They were an overthrow of it. That's why the forces of counter-resistance have spent 150 years trying to reverse them, and why the Roberts Court is succeeding. The work isn't to restore some prelapsarian constitutional Eden. The work is to finish what Stevens and Sumner started, and that means being honest that we're trying to defeat the founders' vision, not fulfill it. We have to be willing to say it out loud. The Constitution of 1787 was an innovation in abuse of authority. It's the one innovation that James Madison pointed out that it actually made in terms of constitutional authority. About slavery, about using the power of a consolidated federal government to protect that exclusion. It constitutionalized it, made it the structural foundation of the republic. The far right wants that back. And they're correct that originalism supports their claim. The liberal nationalist response to this is panic. If the founding wasn't good, then what do we have? What do we appeal to? What makes us America? That panic is a trap. It assumes national identity has to be grounded in the founding mythology in that moment. It doesn't. It can be grounded in the resistance to that mythology, in the long tradition of people who fought against what the founders built. That tradition includes the people the founders enslaved, who resisted from the first moment and never stopped. And their heirs are keep fighting today. It includes the abolitionists who sheltered fugitives in defiance of the Constitution's fugitive slave clause. It includes the radical Republicans who tried to build something new on the ruins of the enslavers' rebellion. It includes the civil rights workers who got beaten and killed demanding what the 14th Amendment supposedly had already guaranteed in the 1860s. That's a tradition worth claiming. That's a history worth knowing, at least. But you can only claim it if you're willing to see it for what it was, not a fulfillment of the founding, but a resistance to it. Not restoring the founders' vision, but trying to destroy it. Serwer sees what's happening. He names it precisely. The Roberts Court, the Trump regime, the whole project. He's got the diagnosis right. But he can't, or won't, trace it back to its actual source. The antebellum Constitution framing lets the framers off the hook. It treats the disease as something that developed later, after the founding, as if the Constitution of 1788 was healthy and then what? Got infected? It wasn't. The infection was original. And until liberal nationalism can admit that, it will keep misdiagnosing the problem and prescribing remedies that just make the patient worse. You can't protect the founders and fight what's happening. You have to choose. And that's a resistance choice. Allons-y.
Hey, North, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've been here, well, since, January officially. Didn't really get, under my own steam till March, but subscribe and share it out. I haven't changed much. What was I going to say? I was going to make one last historical point. Damn it. That's what happens when you get old. My historical point is that, I remember what it was. These two unlearned people that I had to debate with tonight, they literally said, well, they lost the Civil War. The civil rights fight. Dude, do you understand American history? We might be fighting for civil rights like the way we think it should be for the next 500 years. They actually think that the civil rights movement, it should have been won after a few years. They don't understand history. They don't understand sociology. They don't understand humanity. And I'm just sad to see two 40-year-old Black people, man and woman, they literally don't get it. And when I tell them they don't get it, they want to act like I'm the problem. Dude, they need more books in their life. So with that, I will stop whining. And tomorrow I should be back around 1:30 Eastern time, maybe 2. If I do a show at all, I'm not going to even schedule one because I'm going to be doing prep and some cooking for Christmas dinner. So that will take up some time. And even if I do a show, it won't be hopefully more than a couple hours unless the spirit hits me and we all fall down. So, thank y'all for letting me just kind of vent. I know it was a rambling mess, but, you know, sometimes it's just easier to, you know, just kind of watch a history video or two and talk politics with folks who are kind of my crowd. And y'all are my crowd, for better or for worse. So I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night. And North, Merry Christmas. Subscribe. I usually do a daily show. In theory, it's Monday through Friday, you know, Saturday for some fuckery. And then Sunday, you know, it's just if I feel like doing a show or, you know, have some hot take on something or just want to drink a beer and hang out. So I'm here. Don't be a stranger, sir. See y'all later.
Welcome to the Whoop-De-Wop. The Whoop-De-Wop is a name. The Whoop-De-Wop is a place. The Whoop-De-Wop is a thing. The Whoop-De-Wop. Yo, hand me the Whoop-De-Wop. Yo, you got some money? We going to the Whoop.